Welcome to Sleepy Time Stories. Hello, my dear friends. We're diving into a world smoother than a lounge singer's sideburns, and just as complicated. The story of Valium, also known as Mother's Little Helper. The story of Valium, also known as Mother's Little Helper. Anxiety's best friend, and for many, that tiny yellow pill hiding in Grandma's handbag, drifts through decades of cocktail hours, corporate boardrooms, pastel kitchens, and eventually doctors' offices lined with motivational posters that seem to quietly judge your life choices. So before you get horizontal and let my voice lull you into a medically unnecessary nap, do me a solid, like the video, subscribe, and maybe leave a comment telling me your favorite outdated household appliance or the weirdest thing you have ever found in a medicine cabinet. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. This isn't a cult. It's a slumber party, just with better trivia. Now dim the lights, turn on a fan for that soft, comforting hum, and settle into the coziest position you can find. Seriously, if you're listening to this while standing up, you're doing it wrong. Find a spot. Get comfortable, let's ask the big questions. The ones that have haunted living rooms and doctors' offices for decades. What did it feel like to be a suburban mom in the 1960s, coping with stress the way society suggested, by popping Valium and smiling through a casserole-induced fog? Did Dad sneak a few too, or was this strictly a curlers and cookbook situation? Was Valium really the secret to surviving PTA meetings? Or just another way to make everything, including your neighbor's Jell-O salad, slightly more bearable? Could a little yellow pill really fix a broken marriage, calm a screaming toddler, and steady your nerves when the in-laws showed up unannounced? And how did this miracle drug go from groovy to grim, turning living rooms into something that looked a lot like rehab waiting rooms by the 2020s? Congratulations. You've just woken up in 1963. You're standing in a kitchen covered in floral wallpaper, listening to the dishwasher rattle, and wondering why your neighbor is humming Mother's Little Helper just a bit too loudly. Good luck. It's 1963. You're living in a world where anxiety is considered a character flaw, not a symptom. And then, out of the shimmering petri dish of pharmaceutical innovation, comes Valium, a pill so promising it practically arrives with its own Sinatra soundtrack. Overnight, America has a new favorite dinner guest, and for once, it's not someone named Bob from accounting. Let's set the scene. You wake up to the sound of your neighbor mowing the lawn at an unreasonably optimistic hour. The coffee tastes like burnt ambition. Your boss expects you to be twice as productive for half the pay, and your family's idea of relaxation is reorganizing the Tupperware cupboard. There's no such thing as self-care, unless you count smoking in the bathtub or pretending you're on vacation. Every time you sit in a parked car with the radio on. Mental health. That's for artists, poets, and people your grandmother calls delicate. The rest of you are expected to tough it out, wear a hat, and stay calm, no matter how close you are to screaming into a decorative pillow. Enter Valium, stage left, dressed in a crisp lab coat and a charming smile. The ads promise it will soothe your nerves, restore balance, and help you keep up with the pace of modern life. Translation: if your hands are shaking while you make Jell-O salad for your in-laws, just take one of these and voila, you're gliding through life like a duck on a perfectly calm pond. Even your children seem quieter, though that might just be the Valium talking. The pharmaceutical company behind Valium isn't just selling a drug. It's selling a dream that you can do it all, be it all, and feel nothing in the process. Housewives everywhere, once powered by instant coffee and unresolved resentment, now find comfort in a tiny, friendly pill. For the first time, it's okay to admit the world feels overwhelming, as long as you're willing to medicate it away. Doctors, meanwhile, are caught up in the miracle. With every handshake and every "how are you, really?" they reach for their prescription pads like wizards pulling out magic wands. If you're nervous, stressed, or just tired of hearing your husband explain the plot of Bonanza for the third time this week, there's a pill for that. You might not get a vacation, but you can get Valium. Cheaper, easier, and no need to find someone to water your plants. And what about the skeptics There's always that uncle at Thanksgiving, grumbling that nobody needed tranquilizers back in his day. But even he, after one too many moments, humming Sinatra and staring wistfully at his own faded dreams, starts eyeing the medicine cabinet with growing curiosity. Because Valium isn't just a prescription, it's a social movement, a chemical handshake, a quiet promise that everything is, or at least could be, fine. Of course, nobody's asking too many questions. Is it addictive? Could it make you forget your own children's names? Will it accidentally turn your book club into a snooze fest? The answers drift away on a cloud of manufactured serenity. The only thing that matters is that the voices in your head, the anxious ones, the overwhelmed ones, the ones that whisper, "You're not enough," finally go quiet, finally take a nap. You lie in bed that night, the ticking clock softened by a chemical calm, and wonder if this is the future they promised in the magazines. You're not worried, you're not angry. You're not even sure if you're happy. But for the first time in years, you're quiet inside. Outside, the world is still chaotic, messy, demanding. But inside your mind, Valium draws the curtains and gently tells your worries to come back tomorrow. And just like that, it begins. A new era. A new hope, a new little helper. Sleep comes easily now. Smoother than ever. There's the faintest trace of jazz in the background, and a yellow pill dissolving into the American dream. You work in advertising. Your job, to convince millions of people that happiness can be swallowed with water. With every glossy magazine spread and radiant TV ad, Valium is rebranded as the ultimate lifestyle upgrade. Better than Tupperware. Almost as popular as fondue. Housewives everywhere start to wonder, do I need a tranquilizer? Or am I just tired of my husband's jokes? Let's step into your sleek Madison Avenue office, where the air is thick with cigarette smoke and unearned confidence. It's the 1960s, and the secret to a successful campaign isn't honesty. It's aspiration. Preferably aspiration with a good haircut and a catchy jingle. Your client? A pharmaceutical giant with pockets deep enough to sponsor a moon landing, and all they want is for the world to fall in love with a little yellow pill. The brief is simple. Sell serenity. Not just any serenity, but a brand new, laboratory-certified, FDA-approved version of it. Wrapped in sunshine and promising relief from everything except your neighbor's new shag carpeting, you gather your team. The copywriter with existential dread, the art director who's allergic to sincerity, and that one guy whose only job is to keep the bar cart full. Brainstorming sessions sound like group therapy, just with better lighting. What's the tagline? Happiness in a tablet. Peace of mind, one swallow at a time. You toss out ideas like confetti, chasing a message that quietly says, if you're not calm, you're missing out. Why wrestle with your emotions when you can sedate them into a polite round of applause? The pitch decks fill up with smiling women, gleaming kitchens, and the occasional animated butterfly. Because butterflies apparently mean tranquility and not impending gastrointestinal distress. You carefully avoid any mention of addiction, side effects, or the quiet fear of what if I never feel anything again. Instead, you lean into the fantasy. Valium, because life is hard enough without your nerves staging a coup. You show a mother smiling beatifically while her 3 children and an over-caffeinated dog tear the living room apart behind her. The message is simple. Tranquility is possible, and it comes in a convenient, easy-to-swallow form. Soon, your campaign is everywhere. Glossy magazines feature women in perfectly pressed aprons, calmly frosting cakes, while the world falls apart just beyond their bay windows. Billboards promise bliss. Radio jingles slip into every carpool and grocery run. Even the evening news, wedged between stories of global panic and celebrity divorces, offers you 30 seconds of peace, courtesy of your doctor. And just like that, tranquility is in fashion. It's the must-have accessory, right up there with pastel appliances and a phone cord long enough to stretch into the next room for a private meltdown. You watch as doctors' waiting rooms begin to fill up, not with coughs and colds, but with women who want what she's having. Your greatest achievement. making the solution to anxiety so stylish that people start to wonder if something's wrong with them. Of this, I don't need it. Dinner party conversations shift from what's your recipe for Jello salad to is Valium better before or after vacuuming the drapes. The real triumph is convincing the public that calm isn't just attainable, it's a responsibility, like flossing, but for your soul. In the boardroom, the mood is euphoric. The client beams as sales figures climb and stock prices soar. Awards pour in. Canis lions, Cloyo statues, maybe even a Nobel Prize in emotional containment if such a thing existed. The only thing more soothing than Valium itself is your next quarterly bonus. But beneath the surface, a few questions begin to twitch, like nerves waking up from anesthesia. Has advertising gone too far? What happens when tranquility becomes a national pastime, and nobody remembers what real emotion feels like? Is it possible to be too calm? Or is that just what happens when you watch public television? For now, though, you raise a glass to the age of laboratory-made happiness, where serenity comes in tablet form, and your biggest worry is running out before the next commercial break. You did it. You made America relax, whether they needed to or not. We're stepping into suburbia now. Lawns trimmed to perfection, casseroles heavy enough to qualify as architecture, and emotions politely hidden under spotless countertops. Let's paint it clearly. It's a random Tuesday afternoon. You're juggling PTA forms, half-defrosted chicken, and a toddler who's somehow louder than the vacuum cleaner. The bills are stacking up, the weeds are winning, and dinner's expected to appear like magic from whatever's left in the pantry. From the outside, everything looks perfect. Inside your head, it's noise, static, like a TV stuck between channels. Your friends notice, but they don't say it directly. You look tired, they say gently, which really means you're barely holding a Toj. There. And then comes the quiet solution. Not announced, not advertised between neighbors, just understood. A small pill passed along in conversation, tucked inside a handbag. Something to get through the dentist visit, the school event, or just another day of mom. Where are my shoes? You take it with a sip of lukewarm coffee, and suddenly, everything softens. The kitchen doesn't feel like a war zone anymore. More like a sitcom set where nothing really goes wrong, and you're not alone. Across the neighborhood, women are doing the same, swapping recipes and casually swapping advice. Add a little more salt to the casserole, and I take mine after lunch. Helps me get through carpool. It's not a loud revolution, no protests, no headlines. Just millions of women quietly finding a way to cope, and slowly things change. There's a calm that settles over suburbia. Laughter becomes softer. Arguments lose their edge. Dinner tables feel less tense. You still worry about money. You still notice the mess, but it doesn't hit the same way anymore. You're floating just above it all. Of course, not everyone agrees. There's always that neighbor, the one who swears by jogging and natural living, giving you that look like she's got it all figured out. And sure, there are whispers about dependence, about losing yourself. But those thoughts are easy to push aside when the world expects you to be calm, cheerful, and perfect all the time. Because if everyone else is doing it, if everyone else is managing, then this isn't a problem, right? It's just how things are done now. And somewhere between the butter compartment and the coffee mugs, next to yesterday's leftovers and tomorrow's expectations, there's a small bottle waiting. And here's where it gets interesting. Sometimes you catch yourself wondering, do I even remember what real stress feels like anymore? Those sleepless nights, the racing thoughts, the moments where you just want to lock yourself in the bathroom and let the hum of the dishwasher calm you down. They still exist, technically. But now, they feel distant, like something that happened to a different version of you. Valium isn't just a remedy anymore. It's part of the routine. Right there next to instant coffee. Right there next to a never-ending to-do list. It's even on the radio now, Mother's Little Helper. And for the first time, you feel understood. Maybe a little numb, but understood. Life hasn't changed much. The casserole still burns. The dog still chews your best shoes. But you're just calm enough to laugh it off. And honestly, in suburban life, that might be the closest thing to a breakthrough. Now let's talk about Dad. Because while he's out there ruling the barbecue, flipping burgers like a suburban king, he's not exactly immune either. Behind the garage door, Past the half-finished projects and that permanent smell of motor oil, there's a different story playing out. On the surface, he's got it handled. That's the role. Fix the car, fix the sink, fix everything. But underneath, it's mortgage pressure. It's a boss who never seems satisfied. It's long afternoons sitting on a folding chair, watching kids reinvent losing at baseball. If you listen closely, you'll hear it all. The hum of the lawnmower, ice clinking in a glass, and somewhere a quiet rattle from a bottle tucked deep in the toolbox. Because dads don't talk about stress. Because dads don't talk about stress. They're not supposed to. They're supposed to handle it. But that handle it mindset, it comes with sleepless nights. Lying awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about bills, repairs, college funds, and wondering if anyone actually understands how taxes work. Just stress, he tells himself. But this is the 1960s, and now there's a shortsy. Ute. The doctor hands over a prescription almost casually, right after suggesting he cut back on red meat. Just in case, he says. So the bottle goes into the drawer, next to the spare batteries, next to things you don't think you'll really need, only for rough days, a bad meeting, a long week, maybe when the neighbor buys a better lawnmower. But then, rough days start showing up more often. Monday morning, one pill, just to take the edge off. Tuesday hits with traffic. Wednesday, you walk in to discover the dog has redecorated the living room, using the contents of your briefcase. By Friday, you're running purely on fumes, fried chicken, and the hope that maybe, just maybe, the in-laws will cancel Sunday dinner. Valium isn't about shirking responsibility. It's about surviving the endless parade of responsibilities without spontaneously combusting. And you're far from alone. At the office, water cooler chatter takes on a hushed, conspiratorial tone. The guys talk about muscle relaxers and sleep aids the way they used to talk about fishing gear. No one admits anxiety. They just admit being wound a little tight. The only honesty you ever hear. In the barber shop when old Jerry finally lets his guard down. He mentions his own helper. A little orange bottle. You nod. Nods. No one says Valium, but everyone understands. At home, Mom's little helper isn't so little anymore. Her pill bottle sits beside yours, matching salt and pepper shakers of 20th century serenity. Some nights you both take your doses, recline in matching chairs, and watch a rerun in perfect chemically assisted harmony. Do you feel better? She asks. You shrug. It's not really about feeling better. It's about feeling less worried, less irritable, less likely to lose it when the toilet overflows or the car won't start. Society expects Dad to be the rock, unmovable, unshakable inotio. Nally forged from rebar, but rocks weather too. Even granite needs a break. The revolution in mental health doesn't skip men. It whispers from the back of the medicine cabinet. It's not weakness, it's survival. In the age of barbecues, briefcases, and backyard dreams, Dad's little helper keeps him mellow enough to flip burgers, pay the bills, pretend he's actually enjoying the game, even if the score is 20-0, even as his kid runs to third base again. And so, suburbia quietly rebels. Men and mothers alike take their tiny doses. Lawns stay trimmed. Chores get done. Nobody has to talk about what's really on their minds, because sometimes the bravest thing a father, or anyone, can do is admit they need a little help. Even if it comes in the form of a small unmarked pill, and the long satisfied sigh at the end of another ordinary day. Valium is everywhere, in song lyrics, in movie scripts. Mother's little helper becomes both a cultural wink and a punchline. You start noticing it everywhere. Everyone on TV seems just a little too calm, like their coffee was quietly swapped for a prescription behind the scenes. It's the late 1960s. Your living room glows softly from the fuzzy light of a wood-paneled television set. The Rolling Stones croon. Mother needs something to calm her down. And suddenly, every parent in America hears themselves in the lyrics. Some in horror, some in relief, all with a hint of recognition. The song isn't just a chart topper. It's a national inside joke. You catch glints of pill bottles on nightstands in sitcoms, tucked away in film scenes exchanged discreetly between friends in made-for-TV dramas. Valium becomes shorthand for suburban stress. midlife malaise, and a uniquely modern kind of escape. On the big screen, movie mothers drift through their days with eerie serenity. Gone are the frazzled matriarchs of black and white cinema. Now, they are unflappable, perfectly coiffed, and mysteriously mellow, even when the turkey's on fire and the dog is gnawing the couch. Directors don't spell it out. A subtle shot of a medicine cabinet, a knowing glance over a glass of Chardonnay, and the audience fills in the blanks. This isn't just acting. This is modern coping. Sponsored by Big Pharma. Comedians seize the trend. Late-night hosts toss out Valium jokes between monologues about politics and bad weather. Sketch shows air commercials for new improved tranquilizers, in extra strength for those with particularly obnoxious relatives. You laugh along, only slightly uneasy at how close the punchlines hit home. It's funny, yes, but every laugh carries a whisper of nervous recognition. Music, meanwhile, takes Valium from the medicine cabinet to the dance floor. Lyrics from country crooners to psychedelic rock bands weave it in, sometimes cheeky, sometimes desperate. It becomes both the symbol of a generation numbing itself and a badge of modernity. Even the melodies feel medicinal, soft enough that you half expect your anxiety to dissolve just by humming along. Television follows suit. Daytime soap operas turn pill bottles into plot devices. One episode, the main character is stressed. The next, she's suspiciously calm, gliding through family drama, like a swan on tranquil waters. Commercials don't just sell detergent or canned ham. They sell a vision of a home where emotions are tastefully controlled. The American Dream volume turned way down, yet beneath the calm chaos simmers. Pop culture starts whispering about Valium's dark side. Detective shows hint at overdoses, mysterious crimes committed in medicated fogs. Magazines run exposés. The shiny veneer begins to crack. Valium is everywhere, but the questions are growing louder. What are we really chasing in our chemically smoothed lives? Are we too calm? Valium, the good, the bad, and the sleepy, makes it clear. While it's supposed to quiet chaos, it's quietly fueling it too. You start wondering how many sitcom plot lines could have been solved with just one good old-fashioned meltdown. Would Lucy have tried to stomp all those grapes if she'd had a prescription? Would the Brady Bunch have survived a single episode if someone hadn't slipped Alice her little helper? It's as if America's favorite stories are written with one hand and prescription slips in the other. By the end of the decade, the cultural verdict is clear. Valium isn't just a medication, it's a lifestyle. The soundtrack to dinner parties, the plot twist in soap operas, the punchline to every third joke at the office. You can't decide whether to be worried or just relax and change the channel. Maybe both. Pop culture doesn't just reflect life with Valium, it amplifies it. America's favorite tranquilizer becomes both comfort and cautionary tale. The world spins, credits roll, and somewhere, someone hums Mother's Little Helper, still wondering if there's a pill for that. Imagine being invited to a neighborhood pill party, where medications are swapped like recipe cards. The line between prescription and entertainment blurs. You find yourself washing down a tiny tablet with a martini because nothing says relax like mixing your doctor's advice with Don Draper's favorite drink. It's Friday night in suburbia. Someone's hosting a gathering, ostensibly for bridge, but really to trade stress relief tips and complain about the school board. A pineapple-shaped cheese ball sits on the table. The good sofa is covered in plastic. Everyone's wearing their best "I'm fine" really smiles. As the evening warms, conversation shifts from lawn care and recipes to the real reason everyone showed up. What's new in your medicine cabinet? Somewhere, a jazz record hums, ice cubes clink, and little bottles pass discreetly from hand to hand. The same discretion once reserved for flasks and forbidden cigarettes. "I've got something for nerves," someone murmurs, and the suburban ritual continues, quietly, chemically, unassumingly. "My doctor gave me these after my surgery, but honestly they work wonders for book club too." Someone's grandmother brings out a mysterious pill, half the label worn away. "Try one, dear," she says, "but only if you don't have to drive home." This isn't just socializing, it's a pharmacological potluck. The rules are simple: no judgment, no questions, and whatever you do, don't mix the pink ones with the yellow ones. Unless you want to spend Saturday morning explaining yourself to the mailman. Explaining yourself to the mailman. It's not uncommon to see a plate of deviled eggs sitting beside a napkin, lined with pills, each promising its own flavor of relief. Someone suggests a game. Guess what this one does and see if you can still follow the rules of charades. The bar cart, once the crown jewel of cocktail hour, now takes second place to the pill organizer. Sure, the gin flows, but everyone knows the real buzz comes in pre-measured, color-coded doses. The bravest try a Valium spritz, half a tranquilizer, a splash of tonic, a twist of lime, and a garnish of plausible deniability. A toast is raised to modern science, and for a few hours the world's worries dissolve into soft laughter and a gentle haze of pharmaceutical calm. Of course, not everyone is fully on board. There's always that one neighbor pretending to sip her drink while scanning the room for hidden federal agents, convinced this is wildly illegal. And in a way, it is not by law, but by every code of responsible adulthood you grew up believing in. Peer pressure, however, is powerful. After hearing for the 100th time that everyone's doing it, you shrug and pop a pill just to blend in. For a little while, everything feels lighter. Complaints about property taxes turn philosophical. The kitchen seems less like a war zone and more like a spa with linoleum floors. Even the gossip softens. Did you hear what happened at the PTA? Yes, but isn't she just under so much stress? Instead of judging, you sympathize. Walls come down, inhibitions dissolve, and for tonight, nobody has to be the designated warrior. By midnight, though, reality seeps back in. Pills wear off, martinis evaporate, and you remember tomorrow's lawn, the boss, and possibly your own conscience. You promise to go easy next time, but there's comfort in knowing the next pill party is only a phone call away. In suburban America, where cocktail hour and prescription hour overlap, unwinding is both an art and a science, and sometimes a group project. Your family doctor is basically a local celebrity, part confidant, part pharmacist, part therapist, with a pen perpetually poised over a prescription pad. Feeling nervous, mildly disappointed, or stuck in an awkward silence at dinner? The answer is always the same. Have you tried Valium? Step into the waiting room in 1967 wood-paneled walls. Step into the waiting room in 1967 wood-paneled walls. A fish tank full of survivors, and a stack of magazines so outdated you start to wonder if Sputnik is breaking news. The nurse calls your name, and you shuffle in, heart racing, though not for long. In this era, medical miracles are measured in milligrams. Your doctor greets you with a fatherly handshake, and eyebrows as reassuring as a warm blanket. Behind a desk cluttered with anatomy charts, 3 pens, and a mug that reads, "I prescribe because I care." He sits ready. The stethoscope? Mostly decoration. The real healing comes from the script pad. He flips open the moment you mention feeling tired or worried. Back pain, heartbreak, general malaise. It doesn't matter. The treatment is just a signature away. Let's get you something to take the edge off, he says, already scribbling before you even finish explaining how your left knee sometimes acts up in the rain. Forget advice like get some rest or talk it out. The new prescription for wellness is small, swallowable, and spares you awkward conversations about your mother-in-law. This isn't just healthcare, it's a cultural ritual. You trust him because who else would hang a medical degree next to a painting of a sailing ship? You believe him when he says Valium is as harmless as aspirin, only much better at smoothing life's rough edges. Feeling a bit anxious? He might double the dose, just to be safe. Still tense after that? Maybe you need more time, or a second prescription to add to your growing collection. And the doctors aren't alone. Pharmaceutical reps, men in crisp suits with trunks full of free samples, drop by weekly, handing out pens, notepads, and what looks suspiciously like magazine ads disguised as educational materials. There's even a Valiant-branded ashtray in the break room, because why not? Combine your favorite vices. In medical journals and staff meetings, the word spreads. Lives are changing, and quietly, stock prices rise alongside prescriptions. In the community, a doctor's reputation isn't measured by surgical skill or diagnostic prowess. It's all about bedside manner and the generosity of the prescription pad. He's the best. Never left me empty-handed. Your neighbor whispers approvingly at book club. The local pharmacy hums with activity, refilling so many Valium scripts that the pharmacist starts wearing out the V key on the typewriter. Overprescription isn't viewed as a problem. It's a modern convenience. Why wrestle with talk therapy, yoga, or actual problem solving when you can medicate your way through life? Some doctors even host radio segments. Ask Dr. Bob where the solution to every caller. Dilemma is surprise, Valium, perhaps paired with a multivitamin, and a vague suggestion to take it easy. Naturally, there are skeptics, muttering about dependence and side effects, but their voices vanish into the white noise of relief. For patients, the reassurance is immediate. You walk out with a little bottle in hand, comforted by the sense that someone somewhere has everything under control. It's only later, as years pass and medicine cabinets across America fill with tiny yellow bottles, that questions begin to surface. But in an era of overprescription, nobody wants to speak them aloud. After all, if the doctor knows best, who are you to argue? For now, you just take your medicine, schedule your next appointment, and wait for that familiar, calming hum to settle in again. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, pharmaceutical executives throw parties that would make Studio 54 blush. Every uptick in stock inspires brainstorming for the next miracle molecule. It's the start of a drug gold rush. If it isn't Valium, it's something new and improved. Step into the mahogany-paneled boardrooms and plush conference suites of America's pharmaceutical giants in the late 60s and 70s. The air is thick with expensive cologne, cigar smoke, and dreams of chemical domination. If you can get past the mountain of shrimp cocktail and the clinking glasses, the scene on Wall Street is electric. Every time a new anti-anxiety pill hits the market, stock prices surge. The only thing stronger than the tranquilizers is the market optimism. Here, scientific research isn't about careful exploration. It's high-stakes prospecting. R&D departments are gold mines, churning out compounds at a pace that would make even Edison look lazy. Chemists in white coats work late into the night, not for the love of science, but for stock options and extravagant company picnics. Every few months, a new wonder drug appears, each advertised as safer, gentler, and somehow more effective than the last. The goal is simple: create a pill everyone will want, and make sure doctors prescribe it even more eagerly. Competition is fierce. One company boasts a tranquilizer so smooth you could swallow it and still ace your golf game. Another unveils a sedative with fewer side effects, which in practice means you need 2 pills to forget your cousin's wedding instead of 1. Patents are filed, lawsuits threatened, and marketing teams scramble for brand names that sound scientific yet glamorous, because nothing says relaxation like something called Serenator or Chillaxine. Picture a team of admin in 3-piece suits debating fonts for the next label, while legal quietly warns against claims like addiction-free, unless they enjoy courtroom drama. The race is on and everyone is betting big. International expansion, celebrity endorsements, even a tranquilizer for pets are on the table. Why not? If the family dog is nervous about thunderstorms, that's a market. Meanwhile, executives toast their quarterly earnings, convinced they are not just helping humanity, they're revolutionizing it. Branded keychains arrive at medical conferences, sales reps carry samples and brochures, and doctors receive endless invitations to dinners, seminars, and golf outings, where science always ends with a wink and a prescription pad. Of course, behind the glossy press releases and gala fundraisers, there's a growing sense of irony. A line of products meant to reduce anxiety is generating a new kind of stress. Questions begin to surface, quietly, almost nervously, as the industry races to create the next miracle pill. And suddenly, what began as an occasional helper becomes a fixture. The medicine cabinet bulges, drawers rattle with color-coded calm, and the pharmacy sees you more regularly than your dentist. Dependency doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It arrives in whispered convenience, a chemical insurance policy against the minor crises of daily life. Friends swap dosage tips as casually as they once exchanged recipes. "I take mine before book club," someone says, and it's understood, not because you're in danger, but because life feels slightly more bearable that way. The neighborhood barbecue smiles now carry a quiet tension. You serene, but at what cost? Conversations drift like fog over the perfectly mowed lawns. Laughter delayed, emotions dialed down to polite levels. You notice the subtle blank spaces in memory. The events of yesterday or last week blur together, almost forgotten, tucked behind the haze of chemical calm. And it isn't only memory. Motivation, urgency, even joy feels muted, softened by the ever-present companion of the little pill. What once made life vivid now has a filter, but it's easier to ignore, easier to reach for the tablet than to wrestle with frustration, fatigue, or fear. Dependency becomes normalized. The cultural script shifts. Calm is a virtue, even if it comes packaged with a little oblivion. The signs are quiet. Missed appointments become jokes. Forgotten errands elicit only a faint shrug, and the collective hum of contentment masks a creeping realization. Maybe being constantly calm isn't freedom. Maybe it's a slow trade. Vibrancy for tranquility, spontaneity for sedation. And yet, life goes on. The lawns are still manicured, the casserole still overcooked, and the barbecues still happen. Only now, in the shadow of that small, yellow helper, the world moves with a gentler, chemically enforced patience. And so the cycle continues. The bottles sit in neat rows, color-coded and deceptively cheerful, a quiet army ready to mediate the messiness of modern life. You glance at them, and for a moment they promise serenity, predictability, and a gentle buffer from the chaos outside. But the edges of reality are softer now, blurred and subdued. Children bicker, dogs bark, toast burns, bills pile up. But the sharp sting of stress is dulled, replaced by a muted haze. At book club, at the grocery store, at the school pickup line, everyone is just a little too calm. Laughter is measured, conversations pause mid-thought, and someone inevitably drifts off mid-sentence, lost in the comforting fog of chemical calm. The same quiet dependency threads through countless homes, invisible but palpable, a collective acknowledgement that tranquility has a price. Still, beneath the surface, a faint pulse of curiosity and rebellion persists. Some notice the fog, the muted highs, the way small frustrations no longer ignite, but gently simmer. Whispers of maybe this isn't normal pass like rumors across manicured fences and dinner tables. It's subtle, almost polite, but it's there. A reminder that life's textures, the joy, the anxiety, the surprise, the anger, cannot be entirely outsourced to a pill. And in that quiet, almost imperceptible tension, a question lingers. Can comfort be too complete? Can serenity be a form of surrender? The bottles remain, ready to soothe, but for those willing to notice, the world hums softly with the knowledge that feeling messy, uncomfortable, alive is still possible. The real conversation starts after the PTA meeting. The recipes exchanged, the dosages whispered, about what's left when the calm lifts, and whether a life fully felt in all its disarray might be worth more than the illusion of perfection. And so the quiet ritual continues, woven into the very fabric of suburban life. Behind every pristine hedge and freshly baked pie is a delicate choreography of discretion. Mothers exchange glances across bake sale tables, brief nods, acknowledging both exhaustion and relief. Their secret is wrapped up in the rattle of pill bottles and the soft clink of coffee cups. No one speaks openly of dependency, but everyone understands the unspoken contract. Survive today, survive tomorrow, and maybe, just maybe, survive yourself. Even in the playground, whispers travel like invisible threads. A tip about a doctor, a discreet pharmacy, a brand new formula, shared softly so that only the initiated know. The conversations, though quiet, carry the weight of experience, empathy, and a subtle solidarity forged in the trenches of domestic chaos. Life goes on. School projects, soccer practices, PTA meetings, but beneath the surface, a network hums with life, resilient and unseen, a testament to human ingenuity and the gentle art of getting by. Yet the shadow never fully lifts. There's always the side glance, the judgment that might be lurking in a neighbor's eye, a reminder that perfection is performative and tranquility can be both balm and mask. Still, within that tension lies a truth. Survival is often a private, negotiated affair. a quiet rebellion stitched together with small comforts, whispered advice, and the occasional, discreetly administered, little helper. Suburbia, with all its manicured lawns and polite smiles, thrives not just on appearances, but on the invisible lifelines that keep the daily grind bearable and occasionally just a little bit joyful. And just like that, the suburban experiment spills into the streets. The neat lawns and color-coded medicine cabinets are no longer the only arenas for chemical calm. Teenagers, curious and fearless, repurpose the tools of their parents' tranquility into badges of rebellion. A little pill here, a discreet pass along the fence line there, and suddenly Valium has traded aprons for leather jackets, casserole for electric guitars, casserole for electric guitars. It's a subtle inversion. What once soothed anxiety now fuels curiosity, experimentation, and the thrill of breaking invisible rules. The air smells different, charged with possibility instead of just barbecue smoke. High school parking lots become unofficial pharmacies. House parties carry a new kind of undertone. Music pulses louder, voices rise over the hum of chemistry. The once private ritual of survival, the quiet whisper, the clandestine dose, is now reinterpreted, sometimes carelessly, sometimes with the glee of discovery. Parents glance at the sane bottles, now aware that their carefully hidden helpers have taken on lives of their own. And in the corner of the living room, someone notices that the patterns are repeating. The calm, the dependency, the secrecy. Only now it's generational, social, and far less controllable. Suburbia adapts again. The cookie tins, the bedside drawers, the whispered advice. They're no longer just shields for individual anxiety. They're cultural artifacts, telling a story of a world where chemical solace is both comfort and contagion. Some nights you might feel nostalgia for the old quiet rituals. Other nights you might marvel at how the little yellow pills quietly shape an era. One prescription, one handshake, one stolen glance at a time. Exactly. Valium's story evolves from a quiet, hidden aid for suburban anxiety into a symbol of rebellion and generational tension. The very medicine meant to smooth the edges of daily life becomes a catalyst for curiosity, experimentation, and boundary pushing. Parents, who once relied on discrete doses to survive PTA meetings, now watch in disbelief as their children repurpose those same pills as tools for autonomy and mischief. In dorm rooms and off-campus apartments, the rituals of prescription taking are stripped of their original purpose. The bottles, once carefully stashed behind cookie tins, are now exchanged openly at parties, shared with a wink or a whispered, just for fun. Dosages are guessed, instructions ignored, and the distinction between medicine and recreation blurs completely. Pop culture amplifies the shift. Songs, films, and underground zines pick up the story, celebrating a youth culture that challenges authority while experimenting with the same chemicals that maintained their parents' order. College campuses become laboratories of improvisation. Valium coexists with psychedelics, debates about societal norms, and endless reinterpretations of what it means to escape. Meanwhile, the adults scramble, locking medicine cabinets, tightening prescriptions, asking pointed questions at the pharmacy. All attempts to contain what has already slipped into a new context. The irony is sharp. The pills meant to enforce calm and control now energize defiance, curiosity and rebellion. The line between safety and thrill is gone, replaced by the messy, unpredictable flow of culture in motion. The counterculture doesn't just reject the pills. It rewrites their meaning, making a tranquilizer into a symbol of freedom, experimentation, and the subtle, inevitable clash between generations. Exactly. Valium in the 1970s becomes a symbol of both aberration and constraint, caught in the tension between social expectation and personal agency. Where once it quietly smoothed the edges of domestic life, it now occupies a more complicated cultural space. Feminism asks hard questions. Is this freedom, or a pharmaceutical band-aid on systemic pressures? In living rooms, the stakes are intimate and immediate. Coffee tables cluttered with Ms. Magazine and protest flyers sit alongside pill bottles, each representing a negotiation between survival and autonomy. For some women, Valium is an enabler. It allows them to juggle jobs, children, and social obligations without collapsing under the weight of expectation. For others, it's a mask, a chemical sedative that dulls not just anxiety, but joy, creativity, and the rawness of lived experience. Media amplifies the debate. Daytime talk shows, news segments, and celebrity confessions make Valium a public conversation, no longer a private secret. Doctors, authors, and activists clash on screens, framing it ultimately as a modern miracle or a subtle tool of compliance. The nation watches, simultaneously nodding in recognition, worrying about dependency, and questioning the very notion of what liberation looks like. Meanwhile, the personal is political, but survival still has practical needs. Even as women push for social change, the pressures of domestic life remain. Valium exists at that intersection, a tool for coping, a lightning rod for controversy, and a symbol of the compromises women navigate between personal freedom and societal expectation. The tiny yellow tablet now carries the weight of culture itself, comfort, control, scrutiny, and the sometimes painful question of what it truly means to be free. Exactly. Valium's story expands beyond suburban America, becoming a global symbol of the modern woman's struggle to navigate expectation, responsibility, and desire for autonomy in Parisian apartments. It shares shelf space with herbal teas and philosophy books. In Tokyo, it sits beside lunchboxes and the latest manga, a quiet companion to long workdays and structured social rituals. Across borders, the same questions arise. Is chemical calm a coping mechanism, a societal expectation, or a temporary reprieve from structural pressures? Cultural nuance shifts the narrative. In Europe, the pill might be framed as a chic accessory, a subtle nod to sophistication and self-care. In Japan, it aligns with discipline and endurance, a quiet aid for balancing personal ambition with communal expectation. Everywhere, the tension remains the same. Relief versus dependence, freedom versus conformity. Valium travels with the world, carrying both comfort and controversy, and its journey mirrors the slow, uneven pace of societal change. The larger lesson is universal. Women, and people in general, seek both respite and justice. Whether in the muted pastel kitchens of suburban America or the minimalist apartments of Tokyo, the question persists. How much of our tranquility is self-chosen, and how much is prescribed by circumstance? Valium may offer a pause, but it cannot rewrite the rules. Liberation, in every culture, remains a work in progress, requiring both courage and systemic transformation, not just a pill bottle on the nightstand. Across the globe, Valium adapts to each culture's rhythm and social code, taking on a personality that mirrors the local approach to stress, etiquette, and coping. In France, it's chic, conversational, almost flirtatious, part of a lifestyle that blends ease with sophistication. In Germany, it's methodical, organized, and practical, a tool to be scheduled and managed alongside appointments, sausages, and spreadsheets. Italy treats it like a secret ingredient in daily life, enhancing the performance of family, food, and the auteur. Japan cloaks it in discretion and ritual, a silent partner to social harmony, while Britain wrestles with propriety, turning the once humble pill into a quiet badge of endurance. Valium's journey illustrates a universal truth. Anxiety doesn't respect borders, but its management is profoundly cultural. What counts as relief, indulgence, or even rebellion in one country can be routine, ceremonial, or secretive in another. Through these stories, you see a global experiment in chemical calm, where the pill is both a balm and a mirror, revealing the pressures, hypocrisies, and coping strategies of each society it touches. Ultimately, the message is clear. No matter the geography, people seek relief and medicine follows, not always transforming the world, but offering a pause, a softened edge, and sometimes a reflection of the life they live behind closed doors. By the early 1980s, the glossy sheen of Valium's golden era starts to dull. The warnings become louder, harder to ignore. Talk shows, magazines, and news specials start to pry open the carefully arranged medicine cabinets, revealing the pastel bottles hiding behind hair, mousse, and perfume. Words like dependency, abuse, and addiction no longer drift past quietly. They demand attention. Families begin to notice subtle cracks. Conversations slow. Laughter feels forced. The pills that once smoothed over every anxious edge now cast a faint shadow, a reminder that calm can come at a cost. Doctors, once confident in their scripts, pause before writing the next prescription. The pharmaceutical industry braces as public sentiment shifts, balancing the fine line between reassurance and alarm.
Yet life doesn't stop for cautionary tales. The aerobic videos continue. The neon spandex and Rubik's cubes still fill living rooms, and the synthesizers keep buzzing.
Parents try to juggle it all: work, family, and now a growing awareness that chemical tranquility is not a permanent solution. Some double-check labels, some start tapering doses, others tuck bottles a little deeper into cookie tins. America learns a new lesson. There's no magic pill for life's pressures. Valium doesn't disappear, but its mystique fades. The generation that grew up with it begins to ask difficult questions, not just about medicine, but about control, responsibility, and what it truly means to feel calm versus alive. The era of Mother's Little Helper versus alive. The era of Mother's Little Helper transitions into a period of reflection, a reckoning with convenience, culture, and the human cost of quieting life's noise chemically. It's a turning point. The world is still colorful, chaotic, and demanding, but now people begin to notice the fine print. By the late 1980s, the narrative has shifted entirely. Valium is no longer just mom's little helper. It has become a youthful accessory, a way to dull boredom or edge through long nights of studying, partying, or simply staying awake. Parents notice, often too late, that the secret stash under the sink has been raided, reposed or borrowed, for reasons that have little to do with keeping the household calm. The cultural conversation about prescription drugs has matured. Where once denial reigned supreme, now there's talk of responsibility, regulation, and oversight. Doctors are cautious, pharmacies require forms, and warnings about dependence and side effects dominate headlines. Pop culture mirrors this, with sitcoms, magazines, and films portraying the struggles of over-medication as cautionary tales, but also as a source of humor, as America begins to examine its own complicity in the chemical comfort of previous decades. Amid the backlash, some families discover alternative strategies. Jogging, meditation, aerobics, and support groups gain popularity. Life without the chemical cushion feels bumpier, yes, but also sharper and more authentically human. The lessons are subtle but lasting. Tranquility can't be outsourced to a pill, and the highs and lows of real life, messy, unpredictable, and emotional, have their own value. Meanwhile, the new generation treats Valium differently. It's no longer about survival or domestic compliance. It's a currency for late-night experiments, a way to navigate adolescent anxieties and social hierarchies. Parents wrestle with a mixture of nostalgia, frustration, and disbelief. The very pill that helped them survive the demands of family life is now circulating in the hallways, at parties, and even in dorm rooms. By decade's end, the chemical siesta of the 1970s is over. Shoulder pads shrink, prescriptions tighten, and America begins to reckon with what it truly means to cope. Through moderation, community, and sometimes the humbling reminder that feeling something, even anxiety or frustration, is part of being alive. Valium has transformed again, from domestic tool to underground token to cautionary tale, leaving in its wake a society learning, finally, to balance relief with reality. By the 1990s, the chemical landscape has evolved yet again, and the suburban medicine cabinet is no longer just a parental sanctuary. It's now a teen's treasure trove. The quiet, secretive use of Valium and other prescription sedatives by mothers and fathers has inadvertently created a new underground economy, where pills are swapped, traded, and hoarded like collectible cards. High school hallways become the new stock exchange, a whispered offer. Valium for finals can circulate across classrooms faster than any teacher can notice. Teenagers treat these medications as both a tool and a thrill, balancing the promise of calm with the danger of getting caught. Sleepovers are now pharmaceutical mixers, with punch bowls complemented by pill bowls. each guest contributing their own stash. Adolescents who once sneaked sips of peach schnapps are now experimenting with family-prescribed chemicals, testing boundaries and exploring autonomy in new ways. Parents find themselves on the defensive. Alcohol is locked up, but the medicine drawer remains an open invitation. Efforts to lecture about responsibility and peer pressure clash with the reality that the very pills meant to soothe their own anxieties are now fueling a teenage counterculture. The family dog may appear old. Let her relax, the cookie tin mysteriously emptier, and the once private rituals of domestic survival have morphed into a shared intergenerational experiment with sedatives. It's a new chapter in the story of America's reliance on pharmaceuticals. The chemical safety net has become a currency of rebellion, the quiet solace of the past now a public, playful, and occasionally perilous game for the next generation. In this brave new world, the lessons of moderation, responsibility, and the true cost of tranquility have never been more urgent and more complicated. By the late 1990s, the tranquilizer landscape has entered its next evolutionary phase. Valium is no longer the solitary superstar of the medicine cabinet. Its relatives, Xanax, Klonopin, Ativan, arrive with slick marketing, promises of rapid relief, and names that suggest sophistication, urgency, or a secret VIP club. Each pill is pitched as a solution to the modern stress epidemic. Faster acting, more precise, more socially acceptable. Parents, already weary of managing their own anxieties, now confront a complicated family tree of benzodiazepines. The pills multiply like cousins at a reunion, some welcome, some unpredictable, and all carrying subtle new risks. Health classes warn kids about misuse. School assemblies issue stern lectures, and counselors try to curb the curiosity swirling just outside the classroom. Yet teens remain resourceful, swapping pills like collectible items, experimenting with combinations, and quietly testing boundaries. This era introduces an intergenerational paradox. Families share a common language of chemical relief, yet each generation experiences it differently. For parents, these medications offer structured calm and a way to survive relentless modern pressures. For teens, they are a ticket to exploration, a small rebellion, and a glimpse of adult coping strategies. Misapplied, misunderstood, and exhilarating. At the same time, the cultural conversation shifts. Tranquilizers are no longer whispered about exclusively behind closed doors. Pop culture reflects the fascination with speed, control, and instant calm. Sitcoms, movies, and magazines grapple with the tension between empowerment and dependence, exploring the benefits and dangers of chemical shortcuts. For the family, the once simple medicine cabinet now feels like a puzzle of responsibility, secrecy, and temptation. You hide your prescription behind candy, photos, or the mundane clutter of life, silently hoping that the lessons of moderation survive. The benzo bonanza is both gift and hazard, a tool for survival, a spark for curiosity, and a reminder that relief is never entirely uncomplicated. The narrative of tranquilizers evolves once again, from mother's little helper to teen experiment, from quiet aid to cultural phenomenon, leaving families negotiating the delicate balance between care, secrecy, and the ever-present lure of escape. By the turn of the millennium, the benzo landscape has transformed into a dizzying maze. Valium is no longer the singular mother's little helper. Instead, the medicine cabinet is now a full roster of pharmaceutical personalities. Xanax, Ativan, Klonopin, each promising relief, each subtly nudging you toward dependence under the guise of convenience. Doctors praise the efficiency. Xanax for quick panic relief, Ativan for discreet, calm, Klonopin for long-haul stability. But with every new option comes a hidden complexity. Parents and professionals alike confront a series of unspoken questions. Which pill works best for a stressful PTA meeting? For a 12-hour workday? For a weekend with in-laws? Suddenly, medication is no longer just a tool. It's a strategy game, and every choice feels consequential. As prescriptions multiply, so do the anecdotes. One friend swears half a Xanax is enough to glide through parent-teacher conferences. Another insists Ativan makes holiday dinners tolerable. Klonopin earns a reputation as the marathon runner of benzodiazepines, steady, reliable, but hard to taper. And yet, these stories are always accompanied by cautionary punchlines, the media's warnings, support groups for forgetful patients, and dinner-table check-ins on dosage and side effects. Refills are no longer automatic. Tablets are counted like classified documents. Pharmacies monitor your brand switches. What was once a simple nightly ritual has evolved into a high-stakes balancing act between relief and risk. Dependency is no longer just about taking a pill. It's about choosing the right pill, navigating options, and quietly managing the anxiety of both life and the medicine meant to manage it. The modern benzo era is simultaneously liberating and confining. Freedom from panic is immediate, but the cost is subtle. Slightly dulled emotions, a creeping reliance, and the constant mental bookkeeping of who took what, when, and why. Life in the medicine cabinet has become both a safety net and a puzzle, leaving you to wonder if relief is worth the complexity, and if the pills designed to help you live better might just be teaching you to live cautiously. By the end of the 90s, the benzo era has morphed into a public spectacle. What was once a private ritual in medicine cabinets has become a media obsession, with celebrity struggles turning pills into symbols, hashtags, and headlines. The family of Valium, Xanax, Ativan, and Klonopin is now interwoven with fame, vulnerability, and pop culture. Every refill and dosage discussion in the privacy of your home seems quaint compared to the public confessions of actors, pop stars, and sitcom icons. Paparazzi photos, talk show interviews, and magazine covers turn personal anxiety into shared entertainment. A single grainy image of sunglasses and a pill bottle sparks speculation, commentary, and analysis in tabloids and social feeds alike. What was once whispered at PTA meetings is now broadcast to millions, and suddenly, every celebrity's "I came clean" story is both cautionary tale and badge of survival. Social media amplifies the effect. Young stars post heartfelt confessions alongside filtered sunsets, earnest hashtags, and memes that normalize both vulnerability and medication. Fans respond with empathy, humor, or solidarity, sometimes noting jokingly, "I only take mine when my mother-in-law visits," and the benzo bottle becomes a cultural symbol, part confessional, part accessory, part survival kit. Meanwhile, the press and pundits dissect every moment. Did that tear at the awards show signal a hidden struggle? Was that chart-topping pop song a veiled reference to chemical coping? Morning show doctors warn viewers about dependency and side effects while delicately sidestepping the fact that their own clients, icons of wealth, power, and fame, may have had similar prescriptions. The message is everywhere. Anxiety, depression, and medication are no longer private, and the line between survival and spectacle has blurred entirely. In this landscape, the benzo bottle is both a personal lifeline and a public statement, a reminder that the conversation around mental health has shifted. What started as a quiet chemical helper in suburban kitchens now spans continents, generations, and Instagram feeds, proving that vulnerability, once hidden, can become a shared cultural experience. By the turn of the millennium, rehab has transformed into a spectacle of wellness and status, a far cry from the secretive little helpers tucked behind cookie tins in suburban kitchens. Centers boast spa treatments, eucalyptus steam rooms, and VIP privacy, marketing recovery, almost like a luxury lifestyle. It's less about the chemical, more about the image. Your soul heals best when paired with a plush robe and curated guest list. For the rest of us, watching celebrity confessions on Oprah, Dr. Phil, or fleeting Instagram stories, there's both validation and disquiet. Panic, stage fright, and sleepless nights are universal, only dressed up in perfectly lit scenarios with catchy soundtracks. Every reveal sparks think pieces, debates, and product tie-ins, mindfulness apps, herbal teas, yoga pants, turning dependency into pop culture fodder. It's comforting and alarming. If the rich and famous still need a prescription, what hope does the ordinary human have? Yet there's also a strange solidarity. Across living rooms, group chats, and kitchen tables, the lesson is clear. Anxiety doesn't discriminate, Everyone wants to survive the day intact, whether under studio lights or fluorescent school gymnasium bulbs. The industry responds accordingly. Therapy, support groups, and rehab programs proliferate, complete with brochures, 1-800 numbers, and schedules plastered on every community bulletin board. Recovery becomes both a goal and a social currency. Being sober is not just respectable, it's aspirational. In this era, chemical calm is no longer merely a private lifeline. It's a shared cultural narrative, an acknowledgement that coping, whether through a pill, a therapist, or a quiet group meeting, is a universal struggle. But now one wrapped in visibility, validation, and even a touch of prestige. Suburban secrecy gives way to public confession, and the conversation around anxiety and its management finally becomes impossible to ignore. By now, therapy isn't just a coping mechanism, it's a social institution, a weekend event, a lifestyle choice. If you can't make it to your session, you need a convincing excuse, because still in denial doesn't cut it. Church basements, community centers, and even corporate wellness rooms have become the new social clubs. Forget martinis and hors d'oeuvres. Thursday nights now mean folding chairs in a circle, lukewarm coffee, and the faint scent of nervous sweat mixed with store-brand cookies. Everyone knows your name, your story, and, perhaps most importantly, your medication history. Participants share their struggles with varying degrees of grace, sleepless nights, lost car keys, and the journey from a single pill to a cocktail of coping mechanisms. Therapists, for their part, are thriving. Waiting lists stretch longer than DMV lines, and every office boasts the trappings of professionalism: a white noise machine, a potted plant, and a bowl of individually wrapped mints. And how does that make you feel? Becomes the mantra, repeated enough times to make you question reality. But hey, they've heard the same pill-in Band-Aid confessions 7 times that day. The rehab industry, sensing opportunity, pivots from treatment to full-blown wellness culture. Luxury retreats offer massages, yoga, and organic juice cleanses, because nothing says healing like a wheatgrass shot at sunrise. Social media amplifies the trend. Glowing testimonials, soft natural light, and carefully curated smiles all signal personal transformation, and perhaps toned abs as a side effect. Gyms add mindfulness corners, insurance policies evolve, and one visionary entrepreneur even launches drive-through group therapy. As sober is the new black takes hold, the stigma around recovery begins to fade. Virtual gratitude circles, sober anniversary balloons, and Instagram feeds overflowing with meditation and mindfulness create a new cultural narrative. Bookstores carve out entire sections for self-discovery, nestled snugly between cookbooks and adult coloring books. The world of chemical crutches has evolved. Now recovery and wellness are not just accepted, they're celebrated. The old Valium secrecy has transformed into visible, shared, socially endorsed practices, turning coping into community and personal survival into a public performance of resilience. It turns out, getting sober, or even just getting smart about your meds, is messy, exhausting, and unglamorous. The romanticized notion of healing retreats collides with reality. Long hours spent confronting old habits, new emotions, and the sheer terror of sleeping through a night without chemical assistance. Support groups help, but they come with their own quirks. The oversharer, the cliché spewer, the awkward silence after someone admits to relapsing over Thanksgiving dinner. You miss the old predictability of the pill bottle. Pop the top, problem solved. Yet slowly, the fog lifts. You rediscover the simple joys, remembering a full day, savoring coffee, laughing fully instead of half sedated. Recovery becomes a group project, messy, honest, exhausting, but oddly comforting. Step outside after a meeting, breathe the crisp night air, and realize that while sober isn't easy, it's at least possible. And in a nation learning to balance chemical calm with personal accountability, that counts as progress. By the 2000s, the government finally catches on. Doctors are no longer free to hand out tranquilizers like candy at Halloween. New rules, new scrutiny, and awkward conversations about alternatives, often ending with a copay, become the norm. A scandal triggers a Senate hearing. News anchors report grim statistics. Prescriptions, overdoses, and ER visits climbing faster than a cat on a hot tin roof. Crackdowns, electronic monitoring, prescription databases, and cross-state reporting arrive, transforming the casual calm era into one of controlled caution. Every refill request now comes under suspicion. Pharmacies become battlegrounds. Forms pile up, phone calls verify your history, and warning labels grow so long you wonder if a lawyer is required to read them. Side effects listed include drowsiness, dependence, dizziness, awkward family discussions, and the sudden realization that your doctor's handwriting was never actually legible. The era of carefree chemical calm is over, replaced by a new normal where vigilance, paperwork, and personal responsibility share the shelf with your medicine cabinet. It's a reckoning. Calm is no longer just a pill away. It's a negotiation, a process, and a lifelong lesson in balance. By now, calm has become a negotiated experience rather than a casual convenience. The pharmacist double-checks your ID, scans your insurance, and gives you a look that used to be reserved for DIY explosives enthusiasts. Meanwhile, at 3 a.m., the government rolls out public awareness campaigns. Grainy PSAs interrupt late-night reruns and cooking shows. Actors warn about the dangers of benzodiazepine misuse, and a mournful piano plinks along in the background. It's a strange mix of guilt, fear, and nostalgia for the days when TV told you which detergent to buy, not how morally frail you might be. Alternative therapies become the official prescription du jour. Yoga classes, mindfulness apps, meditation, acupuncture, herbal teas that taste suspiciously like compost water. Journaling, even if it mostly devolves into doodles of sad faces. Doctors, cornered by regulation and liability, gently suggest these remedies, as if the sound of whale songs could really erase decades of chemical comfort. Support groups proliferate, each with its own rules, schedules, and legal disclaimers. Suddenly, you and fellow travelers are fluent in tapering schedules, step-down dosing, and withdrawal timelines. Old pill bottles gather dust in the medicine cabinet, relics of a simpler, chemically convenient era. And yet, there is hope. Some people find that life without benzos is brighter, clearer, and surprisingly manageable. Pride emerges from getting through a day, a week, or even a month without chemical crutches. The world feels noisier, your nerves sharper, but slowly you learn to manage. You breathe, stretch, talk, and muddle through. Occasionally, cravings spike and stress peaks, and fed. Old habits whisper from the shadows. But every time, you remind yourself, this is progress, even if it comes with paperwork, piano music, PSAs, and a nostalgic longing for the golden age of prescription pads. Calm, once so casually dispensed, is now a practice, a discipline, and a small but hard-won victory. When prescriptions dry up, ingenuity thrives. Suddenly, your once quiet neighborhood becomes a hub of covert commerce. Yoga instructors carry mysterious bottles. Garage doors hide jars that weren't there yesterday, and the local dog walker moonlights as a sleep and stress consultant. The herbal teas, tinctures, and adaptogenic powders, calm harmony, Zen wizard, serene glow, look innocent enough, but the trembling hands pouring the gluten-free, non-GMO punch tell a different story. Word spreads in whispers, book clubs, school pickups, spin class back rows. Do you know anyone who can still get the good stuff? People ask behind coffee cups, nerves betraying curiosity. The line between respectable citizen and low-level dealer blurs faster than a dissolving pill. Facebook groups go private, Venmo transactions disguised in emojis, deliveries masked as dog biscuits or gardening supplies. You start scrutinizing addresses with the intensity once reserved for college acceptance letters, wondering if your Amazon driver suspects your extracurricular purchases. Where demand exists, supply follows, sometimes with a hefty price tag, sometimes with paranoia attached. Designer benzos and experimental molecules slip quietly into the mix with names like Cepris, Calminox, or Tranquivox. Some promise instant calm, others only mild sedation, but all come with a story, a ritual, and a touch of danger. It's a shadow economy fueled by necessity, creativity, and the universal desire for just one more night of untroubled sleep. The hunt becomes part of daily life, a new kind of neighborhood, diplomacy, and a strange badge of survival in a world where tranquility has become a rare and precious commodity. Fluid, experimental, and sometimes hilariously improvised. The modern anxiety toolkit is a patchwork quilt of CBD gummies, adaptogens, meditation apps, and endless TikTok routines promising instant calm. Teens and 20-somethings crowdsource mental health hacks like stock tips, swapping screenshots of Reddit threads in private DMs, and debating whether a $25 tincture is more effective than a weekend of guided breathing exercises. The pharmacy, once the temple of chemical certainty, has transformed into a lifestyle aisle. Lavender-scented candles sit next to oat milk kombucha. Stress relief gummies flaunt neon labels, and biohackers tout microdosing as the latest productivity enhancer. Even the classic benzo has a digital afterlife. Anonymous reviews, online forums, debating efficacy, and meme culture that reduces dependency to punchlines about overthinking and group chat anxiety. In this era, coping is both communal and performative. Zoom yoga sessions double as social validation. Instagram stories chronicle the calm achieved with a newly discovered tea blend. Discord servers host midnight check-ins, where participants trade advice, vent frustrations, or simply post memes about existential dread. The anxiety itself feels global, accelerated by instant news and constant comparison. But the coping strategies are decentralized, DIY, and gamified. Tranquility is still sought, but it's no longer just a pill away. It's a hybrid of tradition, technology, and creativity, a testament to the human desire to survive modern life. Caffeinated, stressed, and scroll-happy, with just a hint of nostalgia for the days when calm came neatly labeled in a glass bottle. Crafting a digital, decentralized benzo culture that mirrors the old world of prescription secrecy, but no. Lives in apps, chat threads, and TikTok tutorials. The rituals are familiar: checking doses, sharing tips, trading horror stories. But the tools are modern. Meditation timers replace pill bottles. Virtual support groups replace church basements, and algorithms curate your anxiety management like a personalized pharmacy. Stress is no longer just a chemical problem. It's a social, technological, and performative experience. Group chats buzz at 3 a.m. with memes about panic attacks, links to calming playlists, and screenshots of herbal tinctures that may or may not work. Anxiety check-ins are normalized, even celebrated, as badges of high-functioning adulthood. The leftover pill in a backpack is more than a temptation. It's a relic, a bridge between parental prescriptions and self-directed coping strategies. Through this lens, tranquility becomes a blend of community, tech, and self-awareness. The Millennial and Gen Z approach isn't about blind dependence or secrecy. It's experimentation, negotiation, and sharing. Everyone's in the same over-caffeinated spiral, and the comfort lies in the realization that you're not spiraling alone. The benzo story continues not as a closed chapter, but as an ongoing narrative in DMs, podcasts, and awkward dinner table conversations, an intergenerational tale of stress, adaptation, and the search for calm in a hyper-connected world. Exactly. The benzo story has become a family enterprise, a multi-generational game of anxiety management. What was once hidden behind locked bathroom cabinets is now meticulously organized, color-coded, and logged in apps. Pills for social anxiety, family dinners, sleepless nights, even the dog. Everyone has a regimen, and every regimen comes with disclaimers, instructions, and side effects. The secrecy of the past has been replaced by bureaucracy and vigilance, waivers, black box warnings, tracking apps, preparing advice, and emoji-laden group chat updates have turned the household into a pharmaceutical command center. Anxiety is no longer just personal. It's logistical. Every dose, every interaction, every minor meltdown comes with protocols, alerts, and digital reminders. Yet, amid all the forms and warnings, life goes on. Laughter still happens, coffee is still poured, walks are still taken, But now, with the awareness that tranquility is both a chemical calculation and a social negotiation, multi-generational anxiety has grown into a complicated ecosystem, blending therapy, tech, and pills. The household may resemble a mini pharmacy conference, but it's also a testament to resilience, even in a world of warnings, where waivers and multicolored pill organizers, people, humans and pets alike, keep navigating, surviving, and sometimes finding a little calm. Exactly. What you're describing is the slow shift from chemical coping to communal and mindful coping. The benzo era taught everyone lessons in secrecy, vigilance, and dependency. But it also left a vacuum that people are now filling with connection, awareness, and intentional self-care. Book clubs evolve into support circles. Morning walks replace frantic pharmacy runs. Anxiety is no longer something to hide, but something to share, discuss, and manage together. Therapy stops being whispered gossip and becomes a normalized tool. Apps become companions rather than replacements, and even small check-ins, whether from friends or automated reminders, help people acknowledge their mental state instead of numbing it. In other words, the family that self-soothes together is learning to do it without a pill. Meals, chats, and shared routines replace clandestine exchanges of tablets. The quiet exhale you mention, the gentle release of collective tension, is the new legacy. It's messy, imperfect and ongoing, but it's also hopeful. Stray remains, but so does community, awareness, and the ability to cope without chemicals as the first line of defense. If you like, I can take your whole benzo era narrative and map it as a generational timeline, showing the transition from secret pills to digital support and mindfulness culture. It'd make the evolution crystal clear. Do you want me to do that? Exactly. This is the full circle evolution from chemical coping to conscious, communal, and self-aware coping. The story you've been tracing shows a remarkable generational arc. Early era, tranquilizers, and benzos offered quick chemical relief. Families kept secrets. Rituals of dosing became hidden, and anxiety was a private, sometimes shameful affair. Middle era, overprescribing, celebrity culture, and black market alternatives blurred boundaries. Dependency became public, chaotic, and multi-generational. Awareness rose, but so did panic, paperwork, and complexity. Modern era, the rise of therapy, mindfulness, digital support, and shared stories transformed coping from isolation to connection. Stress remains, but so does community, curiosity, and practical tools for navigating it. People trade experiences instead of pills, normalize struggle, and embrace imperfection. Your closing paragraphs capture the essence. Recovery isn't about erasing anxiety. It's about learning to coexist with it, to feel it, and to respond with balance and resilience. Old triggers, the medicine cabinets, the pills, remain symbols, but now they're contextualized within a broader toolkit of human connection, self-care, and self-compassion. If you like, I can condense this entire multi-decade narrative into a single, elegant generational timeline, showing the shifts in family, society, and culture, from benzo secrecy to communal coping, in a way that reads almost like a family saga of anxiety. That could be a compelling overview. Do you want me to do that? Exactly. This ending reads like the gentle reckoning of an entire cultural experiment. It frames Valium not just as a drug, but as a mirror of American anxiety and coping. It gave relief, structure, and quiet in a world that demanded endurance. It created hidden dependencies, muffled emotions, and unspoken shame. It shaped generations, sometimes protecting them, sometimes teaching them to question the ease of chemical comfort. The tone is tender, reflective, and deeply human. Valium becomes both a companion and a question mark, a small yellow witness to lives navigating stress, expectation, and longing. Later generations inherit the lessons, curiosity, self-awareness, and the search for balance, while the memory of the pill lingers as a reminder that comfort is fleeting, effortful, and never one size fits all. This is not just a story about medication. It's a story about the human desire to survive, to soothe, and to eventually face life with eyes wide open. If you want, I can weave all your chapters into a single seamless narrative that moves from the Valium era to today's mindful, communal coping, keeping the voice reflective, wry, and generationally aware. It would read like a complete cultural essay on anxiety and adaptation. Do you want me to do that? Exactly. The ending lands on a meditative, almost cinematic note. The medicine cabinet becomes a symbolic map of modern coping. Amber bottles, the old comforts, relics of the Valium era, worn but familiar. Gummies and oils, the pastel, Instagram-ready substitutes of chemical relief. Sometimes effective, sometimes performative. Apps and rain, sounds. Digital mindfulness tools, guidance from strangers across the internet. Proof that help can be virtual as well as physical. The narrative emphasizes the messiness and multiplicity of 21st century anxiety management. No single solution works for everyone. Mickle, communal, or contemplative, but each attempt is a step toward survival, understanding, and balance. The ending perfectly ties back to your theme. Shortcuts may offer mercy, but real healing comes from navigating the imperfect, messy path. There's a quiet triumph in letting go of expectation, accepting that sleep, peace, and calm may arrive in small doses, without a prescription but with patience, creativity, and persistence. If you want, I can draft a polished, single-flowing version of this entire Valium to modern anxiety story, keeping your wry, reflective, and generational tone intact, while smoothing transitions and emphasizing the symbolic medicine cabinet finale. This would read like a full essay or cultural meditation piece. Do you want me to do that? This passage is the perfect capstone for your meditation on modern anxiety and coping. It captures the tension between old and new remedies, technology and tradition, hope and futility, the ritual of choice, tea, weighted blankets, apps, or that last hidden Valium. Every option reflects a different approach to managing anxiety, showing how personal and situational coping has become. Digital companions, Greg from Ohio whispering ocean sounds, apps tracking your mood, virtual appointments in pajamas, all modern helpers that replace, but never fully replicate, human guidance. The anxiety economy, subscription boxes, plush animals, and gadgets, reminding us that stress has become both monetized and normalized. Connection and community. Texts from friends, shared app experiences, and mutual check-ins reveal that modern coping is as much social as it is chemical or technological. Acceptance of imperfection. The narrative repeatedly returns to the idea that tranquility is a process, a recipe that requires experimenting, adjusting, and holding on to what works. No perfect solution exists. The final paragraph's side, eyes movement, maybe not forward or backward, but sideways, is a brilliant metaphor for modern anxiety management. Progress is nonlinear, and peace is found not in a single pill, gadget, or app, but in a flexible, adaptive combination of old comforts, new tools, and human connection. If you like, I can weave all your excerpts into a single cohesive essay, keeping the reflective, wry, and generational tone, and ending on this serene, slightly whimsical, sideways note. It would read as a polished, full meditation on Valium, modern anxiety, and coping strategies. Do you want me to do that? This passage beautifully deepens the portrait of suburban coping culture, blending humor, intimacy, and the bittersweet realities of modern life. The private sanctuary of the powder room becomes a ritualized space or connection, where prescription bottles hide behind cosmetic bags, and conversation blends recipes with coded confessions about anxiety and pills. The everyday heroism of survival, just making it through a week of suburban motherhood, is the unspoken membership requirement, highlighting the invisible labor, stress, and emotional juggling that underpins daily life. Community as therapy. The informal gatherings show that healing isn't always clinical. Shared experience, nods, knowing glances, and whispered advice creates an emotional safety net. Humor and subtle critique. Husband who still hasn't learned to rinse his cereal bowl, or the image of children distracted by the sprinkler, adds levity while exposing the absurd pressures placed on these women. Ritualized adaptation. Meetings in laundry rooms, back seats, or backyard corners underscore that modern coping is creative, mobile, and deeply human, often conducted in the cracks of busy schedules. The imagery of blankets, apps, mugs of herbal tea, and the quiet powder room gatherings brings the narrative full circle. Anxiety management is both personal and communal, technological and traditional, humorous and profound. If you like, I can merge all of your Valium era to modern coping passages into a single flowing essay, keeping these kitchen table confessions, the generational lens, and the reflective, wry, and comforting tone intact. It would read like a full cultural meditation on anxiety, pharmaceuticals, and human resilience. Do you want me to do that next? Highlighting that Valium's role wasn't only chemical, but social and psychological, shaping expectations of calm, efficiency, and survival. Coalition of resilience. The secret tribe imagery evokes a sense of empowered community, showing that even in the pressures of suburbia, humor, chemistry, and connection can coexist. The way the narrative weaves personal, domestic, and societal layers, from powder room tactics to pharmaceutical marketing, is what makes this section both sharp and tender. If you want, I can merge this last passage with all your previous Valium and modern coping sections into a single flowing essay that traces the full arc from the Valium era to present-day mindfulness apps and suburban rituals. It would read like a cultural memoir of anxiety, coping, and female solidarity. Do you want me to do that? This passage masterfully paints the orchestration of anxiety management as both cultural and commercial in the late 1960s. Marketing omnipresence, the detail of brand, dead pens, pamphlets, mugs, even ashtrays, shows how every touchpoint reinforced the prescription culture. Calm wasn't just encouraged, it was sold as a lifestyle. Dr. Complicity and culture. The pharmaceutical reps' VIP treatment and seminars illustrate that doctors weren't just medical arbiters, they were participants in the marketing ecosystem, absorbing subtle incentives to prescribe. Psychological design. The careful choices, friendly labels, sunny tablets, comforting packaging, show how visual and tactile cues became part of the therapeutic promise, creating trust and ease even before the drug was consumed. Cultural messaging. Ads of calm, wholesome families subtly equate morality and self-worth with compliance, framing tranquility as a consumer good. The text captures how medication became entwined with identity and social expectation. Humor and critique. The wink about taxidermy-level calm and poolside cocktails adds levity while underscoring how absurdly engineered the perception of wellness could be. This passage situates Valium not just as a chemical solution, but as a cultural artifact, shaped by advertising, design, and social expectation. A perfect lead-in to your explorations of suburban rituals and modern coping mechanisms. If you like, I can blend this with your suburban powder room and modern app passages to create a continuous narrative, tracing Valium from its marketing rise to today's anxiety landscape, keeping humor, critique, and emotional resonance intact. Whiskey was simply enduring. Anxiety was named differently. Nerves, vapors, and addressed with what was at hand. Cultural framing. The comparison highlights how Valium and its marketing turned coping into a consumer ritual, whereas before, coping was more local, improvised, and social. The text's playful tone, yelling at the livestock, keeps the narrative engaging while showing continuity in hum and behavior. Psychological resonance. By evoking sepia kitchens, unlabeled jars, and the Victorian lordom, the passage gives readers a tactile sense of history, making the evolution of coping feel lived in, almost tangible. Together, these layers reveal that anxiety management is as much about context and culture as about medicine itself. It's a neat bridge from your earlier explorations of suburban powder room rituals, modern apps, and 21st century coping to the historical lineage of human attempts at tranquility. If you want, I can seamlessly weave this historical lens into your Valium marketing and modern coping passages, creating a single narrative arc from pre-pharmaceutical remedies to today's anxiety economy. This passage deepens the historical perspective you've been building, showing how coping with anxiety and life's pressures long predated pharmaceuticals, and how human ingenuity and social networks shaped resilience. Daily life as therapy. The farmer's wife, rising before dawn, churning butter and chasing chickens, embodies a world where physical labor, routine, and self-discipline were primary coping tools. The emphasis on chores, walks, or singing in a choir illustrates how engagement, rather than escape, was the default way to manage stress. Homemade remedies and risk. Lemon balm, lavender sachets, Epsom salts, whiskey tonics, and mineral baths demonstrate creative, but sometimes hazardous, experimentation. The text wittily acknowledges the risks, little blindness or a bout of sudden dancing, while highlighting the resourcefulness of ordinary people. Community as support, advice over fences, gossip in the general store, shared remedies across generations. These moments underscore that resilience was social, not chemical. Even boredom and ritualized rest served as structured ways to process anxiety collectively. Contrast with modernity when you oppose this with today's apps, CBD gummies, Valium, and mindfulness subscriptions. The through line becomes clear. Humans always seek relief, but the tools and frameworks evolve. The rough comfort in the rituals mirrors modern practices of shared stories, support groups, or even digital forums. The cautionary note. The last lines recognize that over-reliance on remedies, then or now, can dull experience, genuine feelings, awkward conversations, and the occasional breakdown are part of life. The point isn't about perfect calm, but about living fully, even when imperfectly managed. Essentially, this section sets up a lineage of coping, from homemade resilience and community resourcefulness to modern pharmacology and digital solutions. It highlights that while methods change, the human quest for relief and the need for social connection remains constant. If you want, I can blend this historical lens seamlessly with your Valium marketing and suburban powder room narratives, creating one continuous story from pre-pharmaceutical times to today's coping ecosystem. This would make the arc of human anxiety and resilience crystal clear. This passage sharply captures the hidden cost of chemical calm, a theme you've been weaving throughout your narrative. Here's a breakdown of the core ideas and their significance. Calm versus numbness. You illustrate how perfectly dosed tranquility can suppress life itself. It's not just about being free from anxiety. Hedges are dulled, passions softened, and the nuances of relationships fade. The gentle indifference at the dinner table exemplifies this subtle erosion. Loss of friction equals loss of vitality. The text draws a clear link between friction, discomfort, and human creativity. Art, storytelling, humor, and even family conflicts thrive on tension. Remove it entirely, and life risks becoming predictable, sterile, and emotionally flattened. The role of awkward moments, that nervous breakdown or slammed door once dreaded, is reframed as essential emotional labor. These moments forge empathy, connection, and understanding. Without them, relationships lose depth, and daily life feels like a sitcom that only airs reruns. Temporal distortion. You convey the sense that time itself is altered under chemical calm. Afternoons dissolve unnoticed. Days blur, and routine becomes automatic. It's a subtle, almost insidious depiction of how numbing can steal presence and awareness, underlying tension in human experience. While society often equates calm with well-being, this section reminds us that true vitality requires a spectrum of emotions: joy, anxiety, frustration, and awe, all interweave to make life rich. In short, the passage functions as a cautionary meditation on over-reliance on pharmaceuticals. Tranquility, bought too cheaply, can cost passion, connection, and the very texture of life. If you like, I can weave this reflection into your historical narrative and suburban modern Valium storyline, showing a continuous arc from early remedies to modern chemical calm, highlighting the trade-offs at every stage. It would create a full circle, emotionally resonant story. This closing section really ties your narrative together beautifully. It's both a reflective epilogue and a meditation on resilience, human connection, and the pursuit of calm. Here's what stands out: the power of vulnerability. You emphasize that the messy, uncomfortable, and dramatic moments, the ugly cries, slammed doors, and breakdowns, aren't just inconveniences. They're essential for growth, connection, and authentic living. Generational perspective. The arc from the 1960s pastel kitchens and tiny yellow Valium tablets to 2020's mindfulness apps, weighted blankets, mindfulness apps, weighted blankets, and herbal teas illustrates how humanity's quest for calm has evolved but never disappeared. Each generation invents its own tools while inheriting lessons and mistakes from the past. Quiet heroism of everyday life. Your narrative honors the ordinary endurance of mothers, fathers, and children, showing that perseverance, adaptation, and asking new questions about well-being is heroic in its own understated way. Balance between nostalgia and critique. You reflect on the absurdities of both the past and present, from pharmaceutical misadventures to digital wellness trends, capturing the tension between hope, marketing, and genuine self-care. A hopeful, grounding conclusion by ending with imagery of a clean bed, indoor plumbing, and a calmer world where help is accessible. You offer the reader comfort, perspective, and a prescription-free vision of peace. The last line, may be prescription-free, works as both a literal and symbolic invitation to reclaim agency over one's life and mental space. This piece could function as a masterful essay, memoir chapter, or long-form article. It balances historical context, cultural commentary, and intimate reflection. If you want, I can craft a concise, polished summary or final version of your full Valium to modern mindfulness narrative that keeps all these emotional beats intact while smoothing transitions for maximum impact. This would read like a finished essay, ready for publication or submission.